paradox is a statement that contradicts itself, but I want to offer you an alternative. That a paradox is an apparent contradiction that we can explain by looking upward and outward and down and in. There have been many paradoxes described throughout history in philosophy and math. Some of them explained, some not. But today I'm going to share with you a couple of everyday paradoxes and then a set of values by which we can look at paradox not as either or, but as both, the both side. So I start with a story. Once upon a time there was a farmer. The farmer had 3 sons. The farmer loved his sons dearly, and the sons adored their father. One day, the father told his sons that he was going to leave to them his 17 cows in his will. He also said to a neighbor who respected and admired the father and adored the sons, "Would you please look after my sons when I die?" The neighbor graciously agreed because he respected the father. Well, unfortunately, one day the farmer did die. And so the sons took their 17 cows that were in the herd and divided them up by the father's will. The oldest son was to get half, the middle son 1/3, and the youngest 1/9. But the math didn't work. They couldn't figure out what to do. At that time, the neighbor walks by. He asks the sons, "What's wrong?" They explain their situation of the will. And the neighbor says to them, "I'll be back." He goes home, brings back a scrawny old cow, adds it to the 17 to make 18, and asks the sons, "Does this solve your problem now?" So now the sons do the division and it comes out just fine. 9-6-2. The sons are in jubilance. So the neighbor takes a scrawny cow and goes home. So what do we learn from this? We learn that complex systems can be simpler than they first appear, and significant things can be obscure and essential. So now let me share with you a few paradoxes. The first one is the control paradox. The control paradox says we have to have command and control in order to create uniformity towards a direction. But we have to relinquish command and control in order to allow new ideas to emerge. But I say, why not have both? Through creative and intelligent disobedience. Proverbs says, "Raise a child in the way they should go, and when they get older, they will not depart from it." As a child, we're taught the rule of fire. Fire hurts us, it burns. We must avoid fire, get away from fire. But if we learn the value of fire, we understand that fire provides us heat, light, warmth, comfort, energy. So if we value fire and not look at the rule of fire, we actually run to fire and embrace it and not from it. The diversity paradox. The diversity paradox says with less diversity, we can reach a solution quicker. But increase the diversity, and we allow for the emergence of new ideas. But it takes us a little time. But why not have both? Through wisdom of the crowds, where the whole is greater than the parts. So one semester I'm teaching a class that I'm going to run a half marathon at the end of the semester, 13.1 miles. And so I decided I'm going to try this wisdom of the crowds thing out. So I asked the students at the beginning of the semester to make a prediction of how I'm going to do at the end of the semester in my run. I say write it down on a piece of paper and we'll throw it into a bucket. I gave them 2 data points. Data point number 1, the American record. Got to keep things in perspective. Data point number 2, what is the average time any American has ever run in a half marathon? So that gave them about a 1-hour window. What I didn't tell them is I was training 5 days a week. What I didn't tell them is at that time, the longest I had run was a 5K, 3.1 miles. What I didn't tell them is I ran track in college. All they knew is what they saw. So I took their predictions, put them in the bucket, trained, ran my half marathon. At the end of the semester, I pulled them all out and I averaged the time. Their prediction, 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 29 seconds. My time, 1 hour, 35 minutes, and 29 seconds. Why? Wisdom of the crowds. No one in that room had much running experience. They all looked at the problem differently and with open eyes. The next paradox, the customer paradox. The customer paradox says we have to listen to our customer in order to design a product that they will buy. But we shouldn't listen to our customer, because by not listening to them, we can open up innovation and emergence and great ideas. But no, why not have both through co-creation and co-opetition? There's a gentleman by the name of Eric von Hippel at MIT, and he talks about the rise of the innovator. In The Rise of the Innovator, he tells a story of disc brakes on mountain bikes. During the summer months, mountain bike riders would get on ski slopes and they would ride their bikes down the ski slopes. And if you know anything about physics and a little engineering, you would know that aluminum rims on a bike, when they get hot, the aluminum gets soft. And when rubber calipers push on soft aluminum, the brakes don't work very well. So the mountain bikers go home, they take the disc brakes off their motorcycles, put them on their mountain bikes, go back to the slopes, and have a superior braking system. Cannondale, Trek, they recognize this. They take the idea, put it on their mountain bikes, and sell it to you for a premium. Right? Co-creation. So now I'm going to share a story with you about the control paradox. The fastest growing infectious disease in the United States, in about 30,000 cases per year, is Lyme's disease. Lyme's disease was discovered in 1977 in Lyme, Connecticut. What do we know about Lyme disease? Well, we get it from ticks. The ticks bite us and we get Lyme disease. Where do ticks get it? Ticks eat rodents, suck on rodents. Rodents eat acorns. Acorns come from trees. So what do we know about all this? What we know is that we can actually predict the number of cases of Lyme disease by acorn production. We also know that oak trees produce acorns in a cyclical pattern, that every 2 to 3 years they produce more. So once we know how the acorn production is producing in a given grove of trees, we can actually predict the number of cases of Lyme's disease and tell you how many beds you might need in a hospital. So how do we solve this problem? Let's kill the ticks, insecticide. Let's cut down trees. Let's hunt squirrels and kill them. But all those are single-point solutions. They don't really solve the system's problem. So here's my solution. Acorn pancakes. There was more acorns eaten in ancient Greece than there was rice and wheat. And if you Google Grandpa's acorn recipes, you'll find plenty of acorn recipes. So maybe the solution isn't to cut things off, but to actually become part of the system itself. Walt Disney said, if you have values, there are no hard questions. So I end today with a set of values by which you can look at paradox. Value number 1, complexity is simpler than it first appears. And simple things can exhibit complex behavior. Value number 2, large worlds are smaller than we think. Value 3, significant things are essential and obscure. Value 4, weak relationships bring strength and security. And the last value, things can be one and many simultaneously. So I ask you not to look at paradox as a source of tension, but as an opportunity for creativity, wisdom, and innovation. Welcome to the BothSide. Thank you.